Thank you all for tuning in to the Innovative Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Seth Narayanan, founder and CEO of Teliant Systems. Today's guest is Dr. Hamid Fesharaki. He is a dentist turned entrepreneur who's tackling one of the toughest challenges in healthcare: how clinical data, dental practices, and insurance systems actually work together in the real world. Drawing on years of operatory experience and at the intersection of clearinghouses, DSOs, and payers, Hamid is building solutions that rethink claims, revenue cycle, and intelligence in dental care. We'll dig into this journey from clinician to founder and what real innovations look like in this space. So, Hamid, thank you for your time. Thanks for joining us today.
Seth, thank you very much for that introduction. Happy to be here talking to you about a big challenge in healthcare today.
Yeah, wonderful. Hamid, you started out as a clinician, as a dentist, and now you have pivoted and you're a tech founder. For the listeners here, would you paint a picture of how you got started and how did you get into dentistry and why and how you pivoted into being a tech founder now?
Yeah, I think I can give you a little bit even before that, talk about myself a little bit. I
Sure.
started as an industrial engineer, actually. So I did industrial engineering. My attention was drawing to dentistry. I was very good working with my hands. So I started to study dentistry. I became a dentist. And then, like any other graduate, I started as an associate in a big firm. Over a few years, started my first dental office back in 2016. I wanted to build many dental offices, and I managed to multiply my one dental office in a span of 4 years. And back in 2021, I was sitting on top of like about 60 dentists, over 200 staff working for me. So it was a big operation. And that's where I started to feel the real problem in the industry. We were taking a ton of records every day, dental x-rays, records as case notes, all those were basically going into our practice management system, data that we never could possibly organize or use in the right way. And then we had different dentists seeing different patients, so we didn't have any standardization. In my head at the time, I was thinking that we should standardize. I'm a very disciplined person. In my head, everything should be the same. I was like, why we can't get all these dental notes in the same fashion? Or why I can't get my associates to just do the same job as I do with my diagnostics? So initially, the idea started in 2021. We just wanted to standardize everything in terms of dental records, dental x-rays, intraoral pictures, case notes, all that. And then as we started in 2021, with pilots going many different angles and ways, we pivoted a couple of times and it basically drove us where we are today.
Interesting. But having an idea for doing something better is one thing, but then to actually jump in and do it is a totally different thing. Were you confident, or how confident were you in that you can make that pivot by actually building a company, building a software to solve that problem, than maybe just having an idea and becoming an investor maybe in a company that is building those things? So talk a little bit about how did you make that decision and how did that initial experience?
I think that's a great question and something often people miss when looking at the entrepreneur starting their journey from a job they had and it was secure. I was making a good amount of money as a dentist and an owner. Money was flowing in. And it was scary sometimes when I'm looking back. I was like, hey, how did you make that decision? Because you had to stop being a dentist. Obviously, I was still practicing a little bit, although I was managing mostly, but it was a difficult decision to make. I had to be very sure that it works. My experience in the dental industry, I've seen everything. I've seen things that happen behind the scene dental office at a DSO level, behind the scene at some sort of a dental organization. But in my head, it was like a no-brainer. I was like, hey, this should work out. This must work out. Because I would see how much money and time spent because of lack of automation in the dental office. And if you look at dental offices, you're comparing to medical offices. Medical offices are usually way ahead in terms of technology. Medical doctors are usually way ahead, 10 years ahead sometimes. And dentistry is always catching up. To me, that was the point in my head. I was like, hey, I've seen it. I can see my medical practitioner friends using all that technology in office. We don't have any AI. And at the time, 2021, there was no AI. There was nothing out there. I was like, this should work. And I could certainly see how it's kind of starting to. And you wouldn't see as much buzzword AI out there. But at the time, I'm techie. I did engineering before I just mentioned. I was a techie dentist. I was not just a clinician dentist. I think that's how, in my head, it was de-risk that, hey, I'm going to stop my job. I'm going to go full-time in this. From day one, back in 2021, I'm a full-time CEO at a company. I'm not doing any dentistry for, 5 years now.
Wow, that is a big jump. So tell the viewers a little bit about the exact idea and the invention or innovation that you brought to dentistry and the whole revenue cycle process.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing, when you're talking to the dentist, there is one thing that is serving as a gold standard for the diagnostics, and it's the dental x-ray, specifically 2D dental x-rays to start with, are the tool they basically use. And I think for us, the very first thing to tackle was that one gold standard, which was the 2D dental x-ray. So we started with that. Initially, we started to diagnose, and a lot of other AI startups in dentistry even started last year before they're newer, and they started with the exact same thing. But from there, we started to realize that there is way more into it. We are not talking as much nowadays about maybe diagnostics. We are more talking about automation, because how can we really and truly assist the dentist? We are not creating another dentist. We don't want that. We are not bringing an associate to an owner dentist who's a senior and probably have a very high value of his own diagnostics. So we basically bring this assistance to the office that is able to do their diagnostics for them. They can all make all their notes, because they always take record of your teeth. Anyway, I'm not sure if you said you spend attention, but sometimes you don't even see it. You leave the office, you're sitting there for the next 5-10 minutes, taking the notes, sometimes converting it from a piece of paper to the computer, or just organizing them on a computer to submit your insurance claim. Those are the areas we are looking at. Okay, how can we help them to make those notes automatically? How can we help them to convert those into narratives they send to your insurance company? How can we tell them, even before the appointment, what procedures you're eligible for according to your dental x-ray that's probably taken by a hygienist before? So those are the areas that we're focusing on. Automation in a dental office, trying to do it A to Z as much as we can. That the point that I'm speaking with you is mainly with dental records, whether it's like an intro picture, dental x-ray, case notes.
Okay. Yeah. So Adra Vision is your product. And how do you help at a very high level the dentist? Are you able to help them with their claims being processed faster, their denials being lower? And is it a better way for them to collect revenue? Is that how you would describe it?
Yes, very close to what I would describe it. Absolutely. We do help them to, first of all, determine if the procedure they want to do is the correct procedure to be done. So the minute they take the record, we jump in right away, give them pre-approvals. We tell them, you took these x-rays, according to them, this patient is eligible for these 5 codes. And now they can pick the code they want to claim depending on the procedure they want to provide. From there, we automate by making the notes for them. Now, making the correct narrative, connecting the correct x-ray, the correct record, whether it's intraoral picture or x-ray, or even their case note, to that particular narrative is something that we do for them as well. Now you're looking at the dentist side. I want to send in a claim. I want to make sure that claim have all the documents required. There were softwares before, there no AI or anything like that. They're just mandating you, attach this here, attach that there. You're getting rid of all that. We do all that for you. We do all that attachment, so we make a clean claim for you that is bulletproof, because we did all the measurements. We send all the measurements to the insurance company that you're claiming from, or to the third party. It can be the clearinghouse. So that's on the dentist side. When this goes in, obviously you have a higher chance of approval. We usually even tell them what have the highest chance of approval, because we know all the rules on the insurance side. Those are public knowledge. It's out there. You just need to use AI to fit what's there to that. And then on the insurance side, look at the insurance side. Now, we work with the insurance companies as well. On the insurance side, what they are doing today without AI is they have a couple of hundred, sometimes 100, 200 consultants on board. And when the claims go in, they pick up 5 to 15% of the claims. This is because of, obviously, the cost is high and there's not enough manpower. They run that through the consultant to either approve or reject. Whatever is outside that get automatically approved. What our software does for the dental insurance companies, we check every single claim that goes in. So we make sure everything is compliant to the rules and regulations they have. At the same time, we give the consultants what must, in our idea, should be, in our opinion, should be rejected. So the consultants really spend time on what is rejected. So they're going to really make money for the insurance company, not just approve stuff, which is not making any money. It's actually giving money out. So that's on the insurance side of this story.
Interesting. So is it fair to say that on the one side, you're helping the dentists maximize their revenue, and then on the insurance company side, you're trying to help them to minimize the amount that they pay out? Is there a conflict?
Not
Is
not
that like,
minimizing set, not necessarily minimizing the payment. It's just paying for the right things. I was talking to someone, and he was basically putting a right probably term for it. Said you legitimize the business between the two. So you make it, because oftentimes, and I've been there. I've been a dentist. I've been there. I got rejection on my claims. Everybody got one. I'm not
yeah,
telling us I'm a bad dentist, but everybody got like one way or another. It
yeah,
could be an honest mistake. It could be a claim that you just thought that is something you can claim. But the bad thing about it for the dentist is the patient get a letter. I'm not sure if you got one of those letters before, not sent yourself personally, but I did. I
yeah,
actually went to my friends and I got that letter from the insurance company saying,
yeah.
hey, what he did was not medically required. They
Mhm.
seriously put the reputation of that dentist on there. And the dentists get angry at the insurance company. If there are many instances, people are leaving a network because they're not happy. And if you think about insurance companies, they want to have as many dentists as possible in their network. I tell you, insurance companies sometimes get very irritated, like 2% loss of network over a year, which in my mind is nothing. I'm
Mm.
looking at the network size, but it's for them is significant. So reality of it is we make it crystal clear between these two entities, what is claimed is correct. And if it's correct, I'm going to pay for it. And I'm not going to take 2 weeks to 6 weeks to pay you, which is the industry standard right now, because I can process it so fast. You might get paid tomorrow morning. Why should it take so long?
Yeah. So have you used AI in any of your technologies? Obviously, your company is heavily married to AI, but how did you leverage AI in what you're doing?
Well, basically, if you're talking about personal level, like my offices and all that, yes, absolutely. We started the very start, usually with the founders, they start in their own business. If you did, they still have a business. But yeah, absolutely. I think, and if you're talking about my personal life, AI is all over it. I have it everywhere. Even starting from my background here, everything is created. I'm not doing it. We are using quite a bit of AI, fortunately, unfortunately. Online and personally, I'm using it quite a bit. As a dentist, I'm not really practicing anymore, but in my dental offices, I'm a shareholder, I'm sitting on the board, and then they are all using pretty much not only the tool that we sell, even more than that, because there are chatbots out there. If you look at the whole dental industry as a whole and get all of what we are doing for it, there are so many solutions out there, starting from marketing, social media. There are all sort of AI tools out there for all the medical and dental offices out there.
So do you see the whole age of AI as a net benefit, both from a dentist and dental perspective and from a technology founder, software company CEO perspective? Do you see this as a net benefit to everybody, or is this going to cause disruptions that is going to be painful for everybody?
Well, everything when it starts, and again, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to remember the time, for instance, cell phones came and the time that we started to use computers properly. Everything at the start, and I tell you, AI right now, we have been a couple of years and we are moving fast, but still it's a little child. So disruption sometimes happens. I can't tell you like, hey, this is going to be so perfect. You never get a problem. And people use ChatGPT every day. People use other type of AI in their daily life, and I'm using it as well. There are failures sometimes, and I can't tell you successful all the time, but that is taking off a big load off your hands during the day. I tell you, if you're a dental assistant right in an office that we are operating in, you're going to save a good 2 hours a day, each
Yeah.
day. That's a good amount of time. If you're working like 8 hours, 2 hours is a portion of it. So it is very helpful. I believe that technology is definitely very helpful. It's going to evolve to even a better solution in long term. I think it's going to be able to do way more than what it's doing today and way more accurately without all the errors that you see. There are errors everywhere. You see
Yeah.
errors sometimes. It doesn't exactly do what you expect it to do. But I believe as the usage increase, and we've seen this, 2021, I remember at MVP, and sometimes when I'm looking at it, just to remember, we kept the screenshots of it and everything. When we're looking at this thing, it was a mammoth. It was so old, and now it feels so old. It's 5 years old, but we were at the time, and what we are today is so different in span of around 5 years. I believe you will see way better stuff in the next 5 years. So I'm pretty sure if I take a screenshot today from what we have, and then look at it in 10 years, you'll see a huge difference. And yeah, that's the way to go. Set, no question in my head. Healthcare, specifically dentistry, dentistry is very packed set. If you compare it to medicine, I'm not trying to undertake what our medical practitioner colleagues are doing, but if you're a medical practitioner, you're not sometimes as packed as a dentist is, because dentist is hands-on. It's procedure.
Mhm.
You're actually doing stuff. You do a surgery as a medical doctor every day, and you do it 40 times a day, 30 times a day, depending on the number of patients that you're seeing each day. So it is a very packed industry, and any automation that makes one of your hands or your fingers free for a couple of minutes a day is deeply appreciated.
What about robotics? I know some companies that have bots, for examples, in the dental front office that are able to take equipment from sterilization to the dentist operatory and back, or even like, for example, in the medical field for orthopedists, that are robotic arms that are used for surgery. So, do you also see a bright future or interesting future for robots inside a patient's mouth? Maybe like doing a root canal or doing other tough procedures with the help aided by robots, maybe at least initially.
I believe you will start to see these things in the next 2 or 3 years once we actually have humanoid robots coming out. I think end of this year, the first year that you're going to actually get some aids at home through robotics is coming out. Believe it or not, I've already pre-registered to get one. So I'm that interested in technology. But what I'm telling you is the short answer is yes, you will see some procedures being done with them, but that will be a longer term game. It's not going to be next year or the year after, probably next 3 or 4 years you will start to see some procedures like cleaning in dentistry is not a crazy difficult thing to do. And it's not probably the most lucrative thing, especially if a dentist is doing. Now there's a lot of hygiene. But I think all those auxiliary work coming through hygienists, through auxiliary orthodontics, like the people who work help the orthodontist offices,
Yeah.
those things can all be automated. And I think you mentioned it, there are robots out there that are carrying instruments in and out of practice. Believe it or not, I know a couple of companies, I know their founders that are working on this. And again, I've seen their product 4 or 5 years ago when they started, and I've seen it recently. There are huge changes now. They're way, way better. But I believe there's still some time needed to get there because dentistry and medicine, I mean, same when you're looking at surgeon stuff, they're very, very sensitive areas.
Yeah.
You're probably going to start to see this in a mechanic's shop before you see it in a dental office.
Yeah. That's cool. So, switching topics a little bit, let's move on to leadership. And you are a leader, you are leading a team of dentists as part of your dental career, and then now you're leading a technology company. So, how has your leadership evolved, and what are some of the changes that you notice from being a dentist and dentist leader to now being a technology company leader? So, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, when I started my first office, I was seeing it as a kind of entrepreneurial journey. When you start an office, it's a business, especially if you do it in a different way. And my first office was very different. We made everything from glass. So you can basically walk in the street and look at the office. Back in 2016, it was groundbreaking. Nobody have seen something like that before. People were staring in. They could see all our lab, everything, all through the office. They could see, aside from obviously the chair that the patient is sitting in, but they could see everything. We didn't have a counter. We made it on very new concepts. And I was thinking that's a startup. But when I started the actual startup back in 2021, it struck me that was not quite a real startup. So, because initially things like funding, we self-funded, obviously, the offices. We borrowed someone and I was a dentist making money. So I was getting money from the bank quite easily. They lent me right away. But when we started our startup, it was a completely different thing. Pitching to VCs, running the team at the same time, being a one-man salesperson, just running around trying to sell the product, the MVP, pushing it out. So it was a very different experience, to be quite honest with you. But as the time passed, I started to feel more into place and I started to a more comfort zone as things started to evolve. We raised our first round, we started our second round. So that kind of helped us to feel more comfortable in where we are. And as the product started to fit the market, we felt like the fit is coming, the fit is coming. Those are the times that I can mark as I felt like I have evolved already in the role. But
Yeah.
that said, as a founder myself, I think when a company gets to a certain point, there are people by career CEOs that might serve better than me as an entrepreneur, founder, dentist, engineer. But right now, what I'm looking at it, it's been a journey. I've learned a ton of stuff. I can tell you in 5 years, I learned probably for a good quarter, maybe all the way from my elementary school. When I'm looking at it, it's a 30-year journey for me. But it's amazing. The feel and everything is very different.
Yeah, the fact, like you said, is nobody teaches you how to be an entrepreneur, right? So you're going to have to learn that yourself. And each of us learns it in a different way, in our own way. But in terms of managing technology, do you find that is it more you're dealing with software engineers as against dentists? Are they more structured and organized and you're able to lay down specifications for a software in black and white, whereas maybe in dentistry it's different? Is there a different sort of ethos to one versus the other?
Yeah, it's very different sets. Dentistry is actually the other way around. Dentistry is super organized. So you have guys who are coming in like 8 a.m., 7 a.m., starting working and all that. But then you're looking at what we did, especially when we started 21, that was COVID time. So we were working from home. I was surprised to see our ML engineers working like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. I was getting Slack messages like, what? So it was very different. Working with these guys, the engineers specifically, some of these guys are super smart, but the way they work, the way you interact with them is very different from a normal dental office. I learned they work overtime. They're not getting tired. They work weekends, especially in a startup. And what I love of startup set is the fact that it was me all my life. I worked all the weekends, Sundays, Saturdays, everything. I saw that commitment when I came to the startup world. I saw that commitment from the other co-founders. I saw that commitment from our initial tech leads that we brought on. Everybody's working so hard, but sometimes I send a message at 9 a.m. I don't expect them to reply because I know they were working last night, the whole night. So it's a little bit of a different culture, and it was a
Yeah.
little bit of a cultural shock when we started this. It's very different. They're two complete different animals.
Yeah. You're part of ATDC, which is a big Atlanta incubator program. How does that help you as part of being a startup here?
The ATDC is one of the best programs ever made. We are a YC company. So we went to Y Combinator back in 2021 summer. We had a great experience with them. But I have to say that the amount of support we received from ATDC through the time here in Georgia, it's unmatchable. I've never seen any organization specifically work with Greg Jungles, who's in charge of the healthcare. Amazing guy. The amount of support, the connections they made, the VC connections, the connections to the high people in the industry, it's unmatchable. We really had a great time. ATDC is definitely my number one type. Somebody asked me, what should I join? I'm down in Georgia. I'm a Georgia Tech alumni. I will definitely go just go for ATDC. They did such a great job in the past couple of years. We were working with them since I think it was 2020, end of 2022. I think we joined ATDC and we had such a great experience with them.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, Atlanta is very lucky
Yeah.
that we have ATDC. And not only ATDC, we have so many other incubation areas for startups here. That's pretty wonderful. So, talking again about entrepreneurship, and it's kind of an uncertain world, right? So, you go in, you have an idea, you create a product, and then the market reacts to it the way it does. So, how do you deal with the uncertainty of all this? Again, contrasting between your dentist days where you've got your schedule, your probably schedules are always booked up. I can never find time with my dentist, so it's always hard to find time on a dentist calendar. And then coming into an uncertain world of entrepreneurship where you are not only involved in technology, but you're also in sales and having to convince customers on the advantages of your products. You get deals come through, deals fail. So talk a little bit about how that journey has been for you.
Yeah, I think there are some similarities in the dentist world. And this is something that is more difficult to understand for the patients, but you are pitching to the patient every single time. The minute I tell you, hey, Seth, there's a cavity here, we should do a filling, but this is too big. I want to do a crown here. And that's going to cost you like 10 times more than a filling. Then
Yeah.
that is a sales pitch. So I was quite accustomed to that sales pitch all the time to tell the patient
Okay.
what's needed to
Yeah.
be done. It was a little bit useful when I changed, but still, when you think about it, in dentistry, you're this expert. And when you tell the patient, you have some credibility, especially if that's your old patient. They saw you for the last 5 years, they trust you. When you come to the startup world, it's a little bit different because, first of all, you're not an expert probably at the start. Even after 5, 6 years of working in this, I still see people talking to some VCs there for 30 years. It's nothing compared to that. So it's a little bit of work to kind of gather that self-confidence that you know your
Mm.
product the best. I think I'm always saying this. Every time I have a podcast, I talk to someone and say, hey, whenever you talk to anybody outside your startup, you are the expert. I think that's the very first thing you should appreciate. Otherwise, honestly, in some cases, you feel like they eat you alive. Like you really need to know. And I've talked to people that convince you in 5 minutes that you have to pivot. Like it's so bad.
Mm.
So you have to know that you're the master of your product. You are the best person to understand. And yes, there are experts out there. They know about the whole healthcare area, but your area is your expertise and you are the best expert in that area. So I think that's the number one thing I learned being an entrepreneur, especially in healthcare, is you should never start to think like somebody else. Although, yeah, we always, and we did pivot. We build a product and you're a dentist, you tell the patient, hey, this is a filling or a crown. They say, okay, filling or a crown, either way you go. But when you have a product out there and specifically you bring it to the dental world, and again, saying it as a dentist myself, we are very picky. We are looking at very small things. If you think about dentists, think about the teeth, think about those root canals, how small. They're looking at those things. So when you bring a product to them, they're the same people. They look at it and they're always skeptical and they want the product to prove to them it's
Mm.
right, especially if you say it's right over them, which is not something that we say at all. But what I'm saying is they challenge the product quite a bit in the clinical setting. So over time, we learn to go through that. We learn to kind of match the product to what the customers want. So we were listening that and we still are. We make changes according to what the customers are giving us feedback for and prioritize
Yeah.
obviously the ones that are easier. But pivoting is definitely a part of it. Change the product is definitely part of it. Something that you don't experience in any other industry unless you're a startup. Even imagine you're selling anything else, you don't really have to pivot as much. But in a startup, you have to do it.
Yeah. That's very true. I have a very favorite saying that how do you know a salesman is lying? You see his mouth moving, right? So that's your indicator. So being a salesperson or a front man, not that we lie or misrepresent, but you probably do exaggerate or we have to some extent, right? We are the best product or we are the best service in the industry. But then as a clinician, I know that in dentistry, maybe a little bit more selling goes on, maybe even doctors these days. But is that a factor of the clinical integrity aspect of it? You're kind of trained to be more focused on the reality and truth, whereas entrepreneurship slash salesman, you need to take a little bit more permission to do that. How do you balance that?
I
Yeah.
think that's a great point, Seth. As a clinician, there are ethics all over. So it should be, and all of us are, hopefully everybody is. But as you said, the transition to be a full-time salesman in my startup, and it's a completely different world. I still think I inherited a fair bit of it, honestly. Sometimes I'm going, it's like, why did I say that? I shouldn't even have mentioned. But sometimes when something falls short, I feel like I shouldn't really maybe showcase that. But maybe I carried some of that. It's definitely a learning process in startup, especially in what we are doing. We are evolving on daily basis. We are making our product better in daily basis. Every 2 weeks, we have a version release on our software, which is pretty crazy. If you look at old way
Mm.
the softwares were built and updated, so we're updating all the time. So sometimes, yes, we have to go out and say, hey, yeah, it's probably not doing it now, but it's going to do it next week. And maybe the next week become 2 weeks later, but it's going to do it. So it's things
Yeah.
like that happen set left and right. That's a nature of what we are doing and where we are. And again, it's not error free. We have errors. We are aware of it and we accept it, especially when our customers are coming back and say, hey, yeah, there's an error. Yeah, errors are still there, but we are doing our best to fix it.
Yeah. Going back to AI real quick, I think in my experience, the whole RCM in the dental world is very archaic, very manual. Do you see a lot of opportunity for better automation there in the revenue cycle area? I've seen that there is like still a lot of paper EOBs that go out for payments. And A, why is that? And B, what can be done or what is being done, in your opinion, to make it a lot more seamless and hands-free and better for everybody?
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Seth. There's still a lot of manual work going in. You have seen like paper UOBs, they're pretty common. I received a couple of them just last week. It's all
Yeah.
over the place. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So I hate getting paper, but everybody gets some paper. I think it's very manual still. Medicine is better. But if you look at the medical,
Mhm.
the reason for that is integration. I think the answer to all that is more integration. In dentistry, things are not very well integrated. So when you're looking at practice management systems, they're not integrated, and the X-ray machine is not integrated. So many things that are not integrated, and integrating all these things probably will make it a little bit more kind of fit.
Mm.
But the other problem is some of these legacy systems is very difficult to work with. I felt that some of the startups where they're trying to build their own thing because they just gave up. It's like, hey,
Mm.
how many times I should tell this legacy software that integration is needed? And I think the other part of it is the insurance companies. It seems like there is a movement right now on the insurance company side. They are starting to realize that these things better to have APIs, fast connections, at least APIs to receive the information, split the information back. It seems like it's moving. It's slower than what I expected to be. But I think
Yeah.
the biggest reason behind all that set, all these years that it's slow and still quite paper based, is the fact that the legacy systems are not willing to pull back. They're happy with what they're making, probably. And no matter how much you try, some of them are very stubborn. And I think when it comes to insurance companies, sometimes you feel like, hey, maybe they are comfortable with what they do. And then the other thing is obviously all these HIPAA compliance, all these stuff that is all around
Mm.
the PHI, the patient health information, put a big restriction on what you're doing. And then you think about, okay, there's FDA, you have to go through that. then you have to be PHI, then you have to prove all that. Then there's SOC 1, SOC 2, you have to submit out. And there's so much restriction. And to be very frank, you said sometimes, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but as a dentist, I tell you, if somebody throw my x-rays online on my teeth, how concerned I'm going to be. First
Yeah.
of all, who can tell that's my x-rays? Nobody can. They tell my x-ray, okay, what's wrong? Maybe I have a root canal treatment somewhere. They're not, it's not like, oh, he's
Yeah.
HIV positive. So what I'm saying is I don't really even see the ground. There's so much regulation around it sometimes that it slows down things quite much. And I feel like you see it like in transportation, in other industries, when there's less regulation, but it's way faster. It's way more efficient. Sometimes I'm surprised to kind of see like in healthcare, it's way slower. I think it's a lot of it is regulation. And I hope in the next couple of years, they start to down, not up regulate, because I'm seeing up regulating left and right, but we see some down regulation
Yeah.
specifically for AI tools.
Yeah. I also used to think when I saw all those paper EOBs coming in one of our customers' office, I thought part of the reason might be that they're hoping that some of those checks don't get cashed
Yeah.
and maybe some sort of a portion of those payments never gets made. But anyways, that's very interesting. But you're right. I think integration is crucial. I think when you have disparate systems that need to be integrated, and on top of that, there is a lot of regulation in that industry, then things don't move. There's a lot of inertia. So that's very true. The final question I have for you today is about tomorrow's leaders and how do you motivate them? And what do you see? What would be the advice you give to somebody that's either getting into healthcare or dentistry or in technology or in engineering? You've got a lot of background in all of those. So what's your advice? Because it's very daunting, right? So especially youngsters, children, when they're getting into college, you don't know which way to look, right? Your bet that you're going to make today is going to be valid 4 years from now or when you graduate. So love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. I think the key is patience, Seth, especially if you're in healthcare, you should be very patient. And I say that like 10 times, you should be 10 times patient. Things wouldn't move as quick as you want. You don't always see bright sunny skies. There are so many rainy days and God knows, maybe icy and snowy days and all that. But things will start to work out if you keep calm and just have your patience, follow the right direction. No matter what, I think the principles are principles. They always work. I personally stopped a big revenue coming in, moving to this back in 2021. I'm not making anywhere close to what I used to make back at that time. And sometimes people ask me, what was your motivation? Are you crazy? Why are you doing this? But I got to a point in my career that I
Yeah.
had everything I wanted. I had some sort of multi-clinic work and it was big. The operation was great. We had like great parties. We had everything you can possibly think as an entity. And I got to a point and say, hey, so what? Maybe I make another 10, maybe I make another 20, I make another 30. So what is it? Where am I going? Am I making a change? Am I changing anything? Anybody going to talk about me the next 20 years or whatever? But I think what this journey brings me, and I think a lot of those founders out there that are starting, what they should kind of look in their SAMs, do I want to make a difference? Do I want to be known for doing that? I know that if they look at trends in dentistry through AI in the next, whatever, 30, 40 years, they might say, yeah, Mohammed is one and he fails and he felt so bad and he lost the company, all the money. But they're going to talk about somebody
Yeah.
who were one of the pioneers of doing this. And that's exactly what I want. I want to be a person to help my colleagues, which are dentists. I know they need help. I know it's a difficult job. I know sometimes you're miserable. The dentist is listening to this. Remember those 8, 9 p.m. after a couple of surgeries, tired, not even feeling your
Yeah.
feet going home. So what this can do is taking off a little bit of that weight, especially if you're an owner. Take a little bit of that weight so you can have a good personal life. You can get your yoga mat and do some yoga for your back. That's how I'm seeing it, Seth. And I think, fortunately, you can start to see more and more young entrepreneurs nowadays, the younger generation. And honestly, believe it or not, maybe I'm wrong, but I think they're smarter than us. I see a lot of people doing great jobs, and I'm very impressed to see 20 years old, 22, 23 years old people right where they should be doing a great job for themselves and for humanity.
Yeah. Well, that's great advice and great way to look at the future. So, Hamid, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciated it and see you soon.
Thank you, Seth. Thanks for this opportunity.